let's talk about this new album.
Yeah.
It's called Death Age,
Yes.
and it will be coming out on the 31st of March through 20 Buck Spin. When did you actually start writing the music?
It was probably shortly after Terrascape came out, which was 2020. And yeah, like I think that when we finished Terrascape, which was the first LP we did, I was like, well, every band I've ever been in has only the most we've ever done is one full length. And so I just like unconsciously was like, well, that's probably it. But that's not, it doesn't have to be it for any style of music and definitely not for death metal. Plenty of bands put out multiple releases. And I think like contemporary bands like our peers that we look up to, like Innumerable Forms or like Blood Incantation or Cerebral Rot, they have done multiple releases. And I was like, oh, we can do that too. And our bass player, Tim, was like, hey, like if you have anything, we'd love to hear it. So I started writing riffs for that. And that was kind of encouraging. But yeah, that was probably 2020. And we all had a little more time on our hands, but it was definitely like I did a ton of stuff by myself.
We spoke about your songwriting process and how you tried to push yourself with every album. But specifically, was there anything you wanted to try on this album that you didn't get to do on the first album?
I think like one thing I've been kind of into lately is like when I write guitar riffs, I try and work I whether intentionally I don't think I do this intentionally, but like I end up working within like maybe some almost generic riffs that are like classic within extreme metal, but then try to like add another note or like tweak it some way like within the rhythm of the riff to make it not generic. Cause I think like a lot of bands that like I'm inspired by like a band like Deicide or like Slayer, where like they do kind of work within some of the same notes that everyone else plays, but they make it sound like unique and it grabs you by like these little details. And so I kind of tried to do some more of that. And I also kind of got into like figuring out, for some reason, like I was into like figuring out how many notes that I could get in a row, but without it sounding like I was playing like just a bunch of the same, like just half steps down the guitar and be like, oh, I got like seven notes in a row on this riff, but like they're kind of all like back and forth and like jumbled. I don't know if that makes sense, but and then like song structure wise, like I think we tried to like experiment a little more because I think we in the past we've relied on a lot of like more traditional metal song structure like that, like Slayer would use, like where it's like intro A B and then like a slow part, you know what I mean? And so tried to like look at bands like Incantation where like they really like have like it's almost like a story and like they really push and pull you and like get you from start to finish, but like you're kind of not sure how you got there. And I think the song on the record Global Death is a good example of that. It does kind of start off in like a more traditional way, but then I feel like it gets kind of weird. And I would like to do that more in the future with Command, little by little.
So both Terrascape and Death Age are under half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consciously try to write short albums, or did it just kind of end up that?
I think it just ended up that way. I, I think that it might be like just we like I said earlier, like we kind of just like we want to make our point, without wasting too much time. And like, I guess like one of my favorite records is Rain and Blood, and it's like 28 minutes. And I read this interview once with, I think it was Jeff Hanneman, and he was like talking about like how like he loves Megadeth and Metallica, but like he would listen to that and I think even Hell Awaits, and he would be like, why did they keep going back to this riff? And so like I mean like Ride the Lightning is like one of my favorite records ever, but I listen to it sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, you've gone back to this riff like five times. Like, like, and so I don't want to do that, I think. So, but yeah, as far as why it's six songs, I'm not really sure.
Well, was there a point where you'd finished the songs and decided that it was complete, and you just liked the way that it was as it was.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I don't know if we read the same Slayer interview. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you just
No, it's fine. I love it.
you just reminded me. I think I read a similar interview. You know, Kerry King can be a little bit blunt,
Sure.
doesn't mince his words, and he's talking about like the difference between like Slayer songwriting and Metallica songwriting, and he said something effective like, "We're not going to play the same riff 8 times just for the sake of it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And after you hear Kerry King say that or whatever, you're just like you listen to Metallica and you're like, oh my God, they do it so much, you know. No diss to Metallica, still one of the greats. I still love, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the recording of this album. Where did you guys end up going?
So we ended up doing the bulk of the recording with our friend Mike Kriebel. He has a studio called Golden Beat in Los Angeles. And we did most of the tracking there. We ended up doing some additional guitars with our friend Andy, who he operates out of a studio called Paradise Studios, and he actually recorded the last Mortiferum LP. And so we kind of started talking with him about doing some other guitars. It was partially like a logistic thing. Mike was on tour, and we also just kind of wanted to work with Andy. The studio he has is pretty cool, and he has there's some like nice tube amps to try out and stuff. So it was sort of a bit of both. But yeah, most of it was done with Mike Kriebel at Golden Beat, and he recorded everything we've done. And he's someone who we almost like grew with a little bit as he like recorded more and more records over the years. We probably met him in like, at least I met him in like 2013. There was a punk DIY venue called East 7th, and he used to do sound there. And then he recorded me and Jesse's old band for like a 7-inch, and then like a couple other punk projects that are like bands that some of us had been in. And yeah, he just was like the obvious choice. And like once you have a good experience, recording with someone, it's like it's priceless, and you just keep working with that person. And that's definitely been the case with Mike.
How do you describe Mike's approach as an engineer?
I think, I don't know. I mean, he definitely like gets like a really like, I think he's, interested in, he leaves it up to us for sure, but I think he can get like a really good, like natural, roomy sound. And he does like, we did all the drums to tape and then everything else digital. And I think that was like a pretty cool combo. I think we've always done that. But yeah, also just like working with a friend is great. Yeah,
It's comfortable.
for sure. Yeah. And like, yeah, I sort of don't know what else to say, but
Yeah, yeah, no worries. I mean, the sound on this album is a little bit thicker than what you guys had on the previous album, Terrascape. Was that conscious? Were you guys experimenting with getting a beefier sound, like maybe more of a later bolt thrower kind of sound?
yeah, definitely. And we did try a couple different things. We play live with both guitars, play live with a Ampeg solid state VH140C. But on this recording, we just used tube amps. So we just used Marshall PV5150 and then some slight gain like through a pedal, and then just like a higher gain pickup, but like I got this pickup that was like a little more low end, I think. And all the guitars were recorded with the same guitar. So I think that was something we never did before. I think in the past there was just like so many different guitar tones going on. Like we would do one track with like this guitar and a tube amp, and one track with like a different guitar and a solid state amp, and then it maybe got like a little muddled sometimes. I don't know that anybody else hears that, but like when I compare the two, I feel like the guitar on this is a little more crisp and a little more natural sounding. And that was definitely inspired by like that bolt thrower, like kind of, it's like a warm tube amp sound, but it's also pretty crunchy without going on like full on like Pantera crunch.
Right, right, yeah. So to clarify, both you and Sam recorded using the same guitar on this album?
Yes. Yeah. So there's two Sams in the band. I probably should clarify that, but there's Sam Bosson.
Oh yeah, Sam Shriver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Sam Shriver and I, we use the same guitar. And that was just like an idea that I forget someone suggested to us. And we were like, maybe even Sam came up with it. And we tried it and we really liked how it sounded. I think it just sounds like really full and like, you know how like Bolt Thrower records, like they almost sound like there's just like 10 guitars playing at the same time. And like it almost like has a chorus effect.
Yeah, it's almost like mono, right? It's so like monolithic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I wonder on those recordings if like some of the guitars are like slightly out of tune or something. I don't know. It has this. We didn't really try and go like full crazy, like try and get that because,
Yeah, yeah.
trying to do our own thing, but it is an influence.